Barnegat's getting an overhaul this year. She originally came in for just a hull restoration, and now things are expanding into quite a bit more. So the first step, though, we're still focusing primarily on the hull. A couple of indications that we saw was at the bow, the planks started to splay out from the stem a little bit, which is a good indication that there's quite a bit of rot going on in the stem. So our plan is to completely remove the existing stem and replace it with a brand new one. The transom, there was quite a few leaks going on, so we're going to replace most of the transom, and every single fastener in the hull is going to get removed. So here's a very good indication of the condition of some of the planks on the boat. You can see it's just completely rotted out, and it's soft to the point that I can just dig it out with my finger. One of the things that we saw right off the bat was all the fiberglass that was on the cabin top was cracking and crazing. So we ended up pulling all the fiberglass off of the cabin top, which revealed the wood, and we could see the condition of the wood underneath, and there was a little bit of rot in each one of the corners. So we're cutting out the rot in the corners, replacing that with fresh plywood, and then refiberglassing the entire cabin top. To gain access to all the structures that we're going to be replacing, we actually have to remove all the cabinetry in here. And that'll really open up things. That way we can replace whatever frames that we need to address, whatever floor timbers, and whatever other pieces that we find that need to get replaced.
And on both sides too, right?
Yep. Since we knew right off the bat that we were going to be replacing the stem in the Barnegat, we then had to make sure that we could get the proper materials to build a new one. So for that, we ended up going up to New England Naval Timbers in Connecticut and met with our friend Duke there, who we've worked with before when we replaced the keel on another boat. And we ended up picking up this white oak slab on the bottom, and we also grabbed a whole bunch of other heavy timbers for whatever we might need it for the project, just to have on hand.
Because you don't know how many you're going to have to replace, so you might as well get
Yep.
right to wood.
Yep.
And tell me how you're going to, how are you going to cut it to size?
So to end up rebuilding the stem, we first have to get the existing one out of the boat, and we use that as a pattern. And once we know what shape we have to recreate, we lay it out on the piece that we have, and the initial cuts are done with a chainsaw. And then after that, we come in with a real big power plane and start shaping it down that way. And as we get closer, we go into more fine tools like chisels and hand planes and things like that. We bought the big piece primarily for the stem repair, but there's going to be a lot of excess material that we'll then be able to reuse in other areas of the boats, like floor timbers and the shaft logs and frames.
The Barnegat's come into the boatyard for a much needed overhaul. Initially, we're going to do a multi-year project, whether it's 2 years or 3 years. We'll have to see how it moves along. But after each section of the process, we need to have her back in the water for springtime and being able to be used for next summer.
Barnegat was built by Stonington Boat Works, Stonington, Connecticut, in 1962. She's a Henry Shield design, Stonington 50, and it's part of a series of boats that Stonington Boat Works built. Some motor sailors, and then some, I don't know what you call this, little coastal yacht that uses a sail as a steadying, for steadying the boat. This way you can have nice soft bilges, shoal draft, and still be able to handle moderate ocean crossings like the Bahamas, that kind of stuff. I believe Ed Crabb bought her in 63, maybe 64, and she stayed in the Crabb family until the 1980s. I don't know, you'd have to check with the Crabbs. She was owned by Joe Brenna of Point Pleasant. She was renamed Sahara. She did the whole wooden boat circuit and put a lot of money into her, getting her fixed up. And then Corbin Day of Bay Head acquired her from Joe, so she's really only had 3 owners.
Just the history of the boat in the area, which has probably already been touched on. It's just a great boat. You know, it gets used a lot. You know, has the capability of really traveling up and down the East Coast, and it's just nice to be able to see people willing to, you know, take on a project that'll keep it going for years to come.